Well, hundreds of thousands of people have rallied in Taipei over the government's handling of a tainted cooking oil scandal earlier this month. Organized by the KMT opposition party, protesters are demanding answers after excessive amounts of a toxic carcinogen was found in batches of soybean oil. TaiwanPlus reporter Irene Lin says protesters are angry about the government's delay in reporting of the toxic oil to the public.
Earlier this month, the health authorities in Taiwan, they received a report that there's a huge batch of soybean cooking oil. Soybean cooking oil is very common in Taiwan, and there's about over 1,000 metric tons of it that contains this carcinogen called benzopyrene, or BAP. And by the time that the authorities knew about this case, millions of people and thousands of schools and businesses have consumed or have used this cooking oil, this batch of cooking oil. And they've ordered investigation into the case, and they realized that there's been a delay in reporting about finding carcinogen in this batch. And once the public knew about this case, they were angry. They're angry about how the government was late to know about the case and how they're handling the case. That's why on Saturday, tens of thousands of people went to the streets. They rallied in front of the presidential office, and they're demanding the government to tighten food safety standards. And some of them said they're not so much concerned about the carcinogen. They're angry about how the government's handling this case.
Yes, and do we know at this stage, Irene, if this has become or could become a major public health issue or an emergency?
Well, actually, benzopyrene is a relatively prominent carcinogen in our daily lives. It forms during cooking processes like frying and grilling or burning cigarettes. But it's not so much of a common topic in Taiwan until earlier this month when the news broke out. And, health authorities have said, it's easy to basically for your body to process it and to detox. But as long as you're consuming under a healthy amount, it's actually not a major health issue. But because it's a carcinogen, it's a group 1 carcinogen. And obviously, there's a strict rule for how much is acceptable. And because the manufacturer central union or corporation, they have exceeded that legal amount. That's why it's a big issue in Taiwan.
Yes, and so with this company that makes all these products, you mentioned Central Union Oil Corp. Has there been any action taken so far against that company?
Well, the Taiwan Food and Drug Administration have issued a huge fine on the company, and they're looking into some of the legal responsibilities, and they're looking to take those responsible into they're holding those responsible accountable. And that's about it so far. The investigation is still underway, and they're still looking into who exactly is responsible. Actually, today there's a report coming out that said there's no solid evidence of the carcinogen being generated during the production of the cooking oil. So they're really still looking at how and where the carcinogen got into the batch and who should be held accountable.
Yes, and speaking of accountability, I mean, this has led to, as you mentioned earlier, a huge rally at the weekend. I think the estimates are up to 200,000 people were there. How much pressure has this scandal put on the government of Lai Ching-te?
Yeah, right. It's definitely put a lot of pressure on the ruling party and the President Lai Ching-te. Actually, the 200,000 number was proposed by was suggested by the organizers of the protest, which are the 2 major opposition parties in Taiwan. They said there were hundreds of thousands of protesters there, but the real number we actually don't know the real number. But it's definitely put a lot of pressure on Lai Ching-te. There's a lot of the mayors who are members of the opposition parties, they also showed up at the protest, and they said this carcinogen tainted oil was found in their cities, and they're here to show that they care about what people are worried about. They care about people's health, and they want to come out and come to Taipei to show that they care. Meanwhile, the ruling party are also doing the same. They've been also showing to the public that they also care about people's health. The Taiwan Food and Drug Administration, they've ordered investigations, and there are actually the cabinet has approved several amendments to a food safety law that are going to address some of the regulatory gaps in our current system to make sure that there's tighter food checks and checkups for these high-risk food products.
Yes, and given that there were so many politicians, as you mentioned, at those rallies at the weekend, how impactful is this scandal and these protests are going to be when local elections are going to be held in November?
Well, the fact that the protest was organized by the two major opposition parties in Taiwan, I think that says something. And these protests were it's a great opportunity for these mayors and politicians to come out to show that they care. And in November later this year, people are going to vote on their mayors. So it's a great opportunity for these mayors to come out to have some exposure and to show the people that they're standing together with them, and they want the ruling party to take responsibility over this case.
Okay, Irene Lin, I really appreciate your insights there from Taipei. Thank you very much.
Thank you.